So this is Rachel New, dating and relationships coach, and I'm here to talk in part 2 of why you didn't get a second date. So in the first part, we looked at explanations that might involve you and explanations that might involve the other person and the situation. But now I want to talk about what happens when the date goes really well, both people are having a great time, and you might even be talking about the second date while you're on the date. But then inexplicably it all fizzles out. What's going on in the other person's mind? One of the things that I have spoken to some of my clients about is the idea that you can be very attentive and on your top form on a date. You can be coming across as the most perfect partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, dating person, or whatever you want to call it. And you form that very special close connection with the other person. The intimacy levels rise really quickly, it's all very intense, and it's wonderful. You get that dopamine rush and you feel like you've never felt like this before about somebody, and you talk about it and it's quite emotional. But that's not real, is it? Because you don't really know the person. It's a fantasy. You're projecting all of your feelings and expectations onto this person that you hardly know. They haven't shown you any of their bad behaviours yet, and so you're having a lovely evening with a fantasy. And so after the date, you can both go away and reflect on, well, what actually happened? What did I find out about this person that was actually fitting in with my list of what I want in a partner? And you may think, or the other person may think, well, it was great, but actually these things were missing, or these things weren't quite right. But I was swept along with the dopamine rush and didn't really take time to think about it. So then the other person may think, well, actually, although it was an amazing date, I don't think that this can be sustained in the long term. So next time we're going to find out a bit more about each other's flaws, about each other's incompatibilities. It's all going to become a bit more down to earth and human, and I don't think we're going to be able to repeat it. And that could be a very realistic decision, because if you've got your list of what you want, which I advise to sort before you can start dating, so you're going into dating in an intentional way, knowing what you want, then you can go back to your list and say, well, my emotions were great, but now I look at the list, I can see, well, actually they don't meet some of my criteria. And so you may decide you don't want a second date. Now that's no excuse for ghosting or not kindly getting back to the person and saying, I don't think I want to meet again, even though I had a great time. But that can explain what could be going on in the other person's mind. And I would say the other possibility is that they may have been very attentive and very intense on the date, saying all the right things, building that connection, using all the right phrases, but they may feel they can't continue that. That's not a sustainable way for them to interact with another person. Perhaps they're not ready for dating right now. Perhaps they're not emotionally available generally. Maybe they're a bit avoidant, or maybe they have set up this ideal person that they think they ought to be on a first date, and then they realise that they're going to let the other person down because they can't keep that up. And they may have a belief that unless I'm that attentive all the time, there's no way that the other person's going to want to keep dating me. And so to avoid the other person becoming disappointed, they back off first, because they don't believe that the other person could continue to be interested in them if they're not this super amazing, attentive, perfect date. So it can just be that the other person hasn't got the emotional energy or the emotional resources or capacity to continue to be the same person as they were on that first date. So I guess one solution for that is to not let that happen on the first date. Try to be more down to earth, try to encourage both of you to open up about your vulnerabilities and your limitations and your flaws and imperfections, rather than setting up this fantasy date of two perfect people. So those are just two possible explanations for why you might not have got a second date. There could be lots more. Do have a look at my blog post on the subject, which is one of my most popular blog posts. Go to rachelnewdatingcoach.co.uk, visit the blog section and search for why you didn't get a second date. So good luck with your dating, and hope to see you in the next video.